Before the turn of the 20th century, very little progress was made in regards to medicine and treatment of illnesses, with much of it being based on ancient superstition and spirituality. In this video we will be looking at some of these barbaric practices, and how some of them didn't fall out of use until much later than you might think. This is 5 disgusting and horrifying medical practices from history. Number 5. Dung medicine. In medieval times there was no shortage of animal dung laying around, and with medical treatments being so superstitious, as well as predominantly trial and error, there were often some very weird and disgusting concoctions people would come up with, in an attempt to treat their ailments. Surprisingly, in many countries around the world it wasn't uncommon to ingest mixtures of animal feces mixed with herbs and honey to treat illnesses, anything ranging from stomach aches, a way to detox someone after eating a toxic plant, or even using it as an ointment to rub on pustulous boils. Different types of dung were used for different problems, such as powdered goat dung often being used to heal skin conditions, and mixing it with goat's milk before being drank to help with menstrual pain. It was believed that the good health of an animal would pass on through in its dung, and in turn cure the person of their ailment. Surprisingly, the treatment would actually work in some cases, but not for the reasons they thought. With honey being a natural antibiotic, mixed with the digestive bacteria in the fresh feces, it might have actually helped people with digestion issues, even if to a small extent. Proving that one animal's trash might have just been another man's treasure. Number 4. Medical cannibalism. Medical cannibalism is the consumption or use of the human body to treat diseases. The medical trade and use of human body parts and fluids arose from the belief that because the human body is able to heal itself, it can also help heal another human body. It was thought that ingesting a specific part of a person's anatomy would cure that part of the body. For instance, powdered bone marrow was thought to cure broken bones and brittle bone disease, as well as powdered blood to stop bleeding, human fat to help bruising, and powdered skulls for help with migraines and dizziness. In Germany around the early 1600s, a recipe for wine made from flesh was invented. According to this recipe, the body of a young healthy person with red hair was used, their flesh was chopped up and mixed with aloe and tree sap, then mashed and cured into a wine. Medical cannibalism is thought to have begun in ancient Egypt with the exploitation of mummies, stealing the ancient bodies and selling their body parts for exorbitant prices. It was thought to cure any ailment you might need it for. Number 3. Lobotomy. The lobotomy is a form of neurosurgical treatment that was often used for people with psychiatric disorders. It involved severing connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex using a long steel spike and a light hammer to stab through the patient's eye socket and cut the connections in the brain. In the early 20th century, the number of patients residing in mental hospitals increased significantly, while little in the way of effective medical treatment was available. The lobotomy resembled a breakthrough in regards to psychiatric treatments which had fallen out of favor since the late 19th century, mainly due to the lack of development in regards to medications and successful therapy at the time. This new physical therapy devised during this experimental era helped to revitalize the then stagnant psychiatric profession. And with a renewed sense of optimism in the curability of insanity, the profession embraced the treatment wholeheartedly. Many doctors and family members at the time believed that despite the potential horrific consequences the results of lobotomy may have, it was viewed as a seemingly necessary procedure to cure the mentally ill person, when measured against alternative outcomes of lifelong institutionalization of their family members. The first lobotomy was undertaken in 1935 while under the direction of the Portuguese neurologist Egas Moniz. By the 1970s, approximately 40,000 people were lobotomized in the United States alone, and was used to treat anything from anxiety and depression, all the way to schizophrenia. Number 2. Trepanation. Trepanation is a surgical intervention in which a hole is drilled or scraped into a human skull. As early as 7,000 years ago, it was one of the most common medical practices, boring holes in a patient's skull for both medical reasons and a mystical practice. The aim was to cure chronic headaches and mental illness, supposedly by letting spirits and demons free from the ill person's head. In ancient times, trepanation instruments were less complex, and were commonly made out of flint, obsidian, or harder material such as stone knives, predominantly being performed by shamans or witch doctors and later by medieval doctors using intricate steel screws and other tools. Trepanation is perhaps the oldest surgical procedure. At one burial site in France dated to 6500 BC, 40 out of 120 prehistoric skulls were found to have trepanation holes, and many of the prehistoric and pre-modern patients had signs of their skull structure healing, suggesting that many of those subjected to the surgery survived the brutal procedure. Number 1. Ratathor. Ratathor was a patent medicine that was improperly promoted and claimed to use radioactivity as a therapy for a wide range of illnesses, ranging from common headaches to impotence. Ratathor was manufactured from 1918 to 1928 by Bailey Radium Laboratories in New Jersey. As a dropout from Harvard College, William Bailey, who was not a medical doctor, advertised it as a one-stop cure to all of your ailments. That, coupled with the fast-growing popularity of radioactive products, meant that the public, even though not fully understanding what they were buying, was still willing to pay top dollar for the deadly medicine. A huge proponent of Ratathor was Eben Byers, a wealthy American socialite and golf player from Yale College. He would die from Ratathor radium poisoning in 1932 at the age of 51, and be buried in a lead coffin as a result. He consumed so much of the apparent miracle drug, that when his body was dug up in 1965 for study, he was still highly radioactive and needed to be handled with extra precautions. His death would not be for naught though, as it led to the eradication of over-the-counter radiation-based medicines, and tougher food and drug regulation enforcement upon companies who might have the mind to sell anything, just for a quick buck. That was 5 disgusting and horrifying medical practices from history. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one.